All right, so the second thing we can learn from Mr. Lamar is to embrace your new role. Now, his next album ended up being called "To Pimp a Butterfly," which sounds sounds rough. Let me go ahead and put that link up there so you know what I'm talking about. And what it basically means, based on what he talks about it's actually a closing poem, which tells you the direction he's going in. A closing poem to the entire album is him saying, "All right, we're all caterpillars." He's talking about Compton. We're all caterpillars in Compton. We're all caterpillars. But then ideally some of us get out, or some of us get to a certain level where we can see the dangers of being a caterpillar. And then when we become a butterfly, then we feel like part of it was multidimensional. But one of the things is that we feel like we almost feel like a survivor's guilt. We're the ones that made it. I have people that I grew up with that, as I'm thinking about it, the list keeps getting longer. There's people that I grew up with that aren't here anymore, and some of them not from natural causes, or they're in situations that they can't get out of. There's a guilt with that. I got my master's in magazine publishing from Northwestern. I got two beautiful kids, a beautiful home. You know, I can chit chat with y'all. There's 18,000 plus of y'all at this moment that are subscribed to the channel. Like, I'm wearing a Brooks Brothers blazer. Like, when you kind of check in and you're like, and you're going through whatever you're going through, and then you're like, oh crap, I might have actually been one of them that made it, because you're so busy doing what you're doing. Once that happens, which is what this album, in my opinion, is all about, then you have to process, number one, the survivor's guilt for you being, quote unquote, the one that made it. The second thing you need to do is accept that it's not your job to save everyone else. Which, if you listen to Pimp a Butterfly, fantastic album, one of my favorite albums of all time. He talks about that. He talks about giving somebody $1. There's literally one called "Can You Spare a Dollar?" I screwed up the name of it, but if you're familiar with the album, or if you check out the album right now, you know what I'm talking about. There's that song on there. I could go through the whole list, even with like his romantic relationships, even his relationships with his friends from the hood. And then there's a fantastic, one of my favorite songs on there called "Institutionalized," and it sounds like it's nonfiction. It's a story of his friends being fresh out of jail, and Kendrick is invited to an award show, or he's there to get an award, and he hooks the homies up, gets them suited and booted, as they say, got them clean, paid their way to come there, and then they just started wilding out. And it's like, he's like, oh wait, I can't save everybody. I can't do it. I'm the one that made it, but I can't save everybody. And, you know, there's lots of tales. I don't even say any names. If you're around in the 90s, you already know the direction I'm going in, where amazing people in the hip hop community, people that are making millions of dollars, that try to go back and save everybody. And then they end up being the ones that claim bankruptcy. They end up being the ones that end up on the street. They end up being further back, kind of like the lottery winners, who a good percentage of lottery winners end up being bankrupt or in debt or in a worse place than they were before they won the lottery within like 3 to 5 years. You can look it up, the statistics. Same type of energy. This album talks about that. There are two things you can do from an emotional intelligence standpoint to process this idea of the new role. The first thing is, as transition experts talk about, shout out to my mentors who have talked to me about that. Transition experts talk about, there's something called the messy middle. So you're at where you're at, but you're not really happy there, or you want to do something else. You want to go in a different direction. And then, of course, is where you want to go. Between the two is a messy middle. I talk about that in my book, Career Remix. I have it somewhere over here. There it is. I talk about it in my book, Career Remix. And one of the things I talk about is it being comparable to you being on the shore and there being an island that you want to go to, or another shore in the distance that you really want to get to. You have a strong idea it's there. You might not even be able to fully see it, but you have a strong idea it's there. And then at a certain point, you have to leave the shore. And there's always going to be a point where it's too far to go back and it's too far to go forward. and you have to make a decision. That's the messy middle to me. And it's either you're going to roll back like Walmart prices, or you're going to push forward, not in a negative way, but push forward and actually allow, to go with the metaphor, allow the chrysalis to form and go from a caterpillar to a butterfly. At a certain point, you have to make that decision. That's with any transition. Sometimes it's easier than others, but we always have to have that moment where it's like, I am going to go forward. The second part is letting go of what doesn't serve you. So the first part is accepting that it's going to be messy. Even for a moment, it's going to be messy. You're going to have your doubts. Just accept it before you even start the journey. The second part is letting go of what doesn't serve you. And as an example I talked about, his homies from the hood, some of them, I'm sure, have adapted and are supportive of him, whatever, or doing their own thing. And then some of them are going to be exactly where they are. And there's no amount of money, no amount of acclaim, no amount of Grammys that will help him get them out of where they're at, because that's a choice that they have to make. That is emotional intelligence, my friend. That is emotional intelligence, which again, shout out to Kendrick. He breaks it down amazingly well. All right, Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. The Godfather. I remember seeing this book when I was young. It was actually on my parents' shelf. Shout out to my mom. It was on my parents' shelf. And back before Brene Brown, shout out to Brene, but way before Brene Brown. Back when Brene Brown was maybe still doing her dissertation. Like, it was really early on. I can look up the year, but I want to say sometime in the 90s. This is the guy that literally, from my research, has coined the term emotional intelligence. If you want to go to the root where we keep saying EQ, which means emotional intelligence, you keep hearing it, you keep saying it, Damon keeps saying it. You want to go to the root? This is the root. Start with that. Fantastic book. You should have it on your shelf. And most recently, a surprise episode that came out last Sunday, How to Know Yourself More, A Beginner's Guide, episode 374. I take some of the best stuff. We've had a lot of good discussions here, I would say. Y'all coming into the comments, us having some very vulnerable conversations. Thank you so much for the folks that jumped in the comments in the episode before last. We're talking about vulnerability and relationships and all that stuff. Heavy, important stuff. All that stuff is in here, in this. You don't need to watch all the episodes. You just need to watch this one and more. So it's the episode where I'm talking about accepting your shadow from a few weeks ago. It's the episode from, I believe, a week ago, where how to deal with difficult people or difficult relationships, because people usually aren't difficult. It's usually the dynamics that are difficult. Also talk about and share the basic of emotional intelligence, focusing on Brene Brown's work and having some clips from her. And then also some content as far as how to get yourself into enough of a relaxed or mindful mindset that you slow down enough so you actually feel where your emotions are coming from, and therefore you can process them in a certain way. Really proud of this episode. Be sure and check it out. It's a deep dive. That's the best way I can put it. And I hope y'all get a lot out of it. This is the Bring Your Worth Show. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown. You can reach me at damonbrown.net. Happy to serve you. I feel like I need one of those McDonald's things, like 300-400 coaching clients served. Maybe one day. Bring Your Worth TV every Wednesday at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. I must need some more kombucha because my tongue is tied. You can subscribe for free at the link below, or just go to bringyourworth.tv. Click below. If you check me out on Amazon, shout out to y'all. Just hit the follow button on there, whatever platform you happen to be on. You can rock with that. And the latest book is the complete Bring Your Worth collection. You can listen to it for free. It's about 8 hours of content, several books. Go enjoy it, have fun, and support the channel.